Australia looks perfect until you try to live here. The beaches are pristine. The cities are clean. The Instagram shots write themselves. But behind every sunset photo is someone calculating whether they can afford rent next month. This is what happens when paradise becomes unaffordable. The belief. You arrive thinking Australia is the dream. Safe streets, high wages, work-life balance, a country that takes care of its people. The recruitment videos show families at barbecues. The migration blogs talk about quality of life. The salary numbers look impressive. $70,000, $90,000, even $120,000 a year. You think you've made it. Your friends back home are jealous. Your family is proud. You post photos of Bondi Beach, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, the Melbourne laneways. Everyone thinks you're living the dream. And for the first few weeks, maybe you believe it too. The reality. Then you see the rent. Sydney, $650 a week for a one-bedroom apartment an hour from the city. Melbourne, $550. Brisbane used to be the affordable option. Now it's $500. That's $2,600 a month. Before groceries, before transport, before anything breaks. You're earning what sounds like good money. But after tax, after rent, after the basics, there's nothing left. Here's where it breaks down. You calculate your take-home pay. Let's say you're earning $85,000, a solid middle-class salary. After tax, that's about $5,200 a month. Rent, $2,600. Groceries, $900. Transport, $400. Utilities, $300. Phone and internet, $150. Health insurance, because public waiting lists are 12 plus months, $200. You at $4,550. You have $650 left for everything else. Clothes, savings, emergencies, social life, debt repayment, dental work, car repairs. $650 for an entire month. This is the part nobody plans for. The proof. A 2024 report from Anglicare found that less than 1% of rental properties in Australia are affordable for someone on minimum wage. Not 10%. Not 5%. Less than 1%. The median house price in Sydney is $1.4 million. In Melbourne, it's $950,000. Even regional areas that were once cheap, places like Ballarat or Toowoomba, are now $600,000 or more. A Commonwealth Bank analysis showed that the average Australian household now spends 30% of their income on rent or mortgage repayments. For renters in capital cities, it's closer to 40%. Groceries have surged. A standard weekly shop that cost $150 2 years ago now costs $220. Bread is $5. A kilogram of chicken breast is $14. Petrol in major cities sits at $2.10 a litre. Insurance, home, car, health has jumped by 20 to 30% in the last 18 months. Electricity bills have doubled in some states. One report from CanStar showed quarterly electricity bills hitting $500 to $700 for a small household. Childcare costs $120 to $150 per day per child. That's $600 to $750 a week if you have one toddler. For 2 kids, you're looking at $1,200 to $1,500 weekly. Some families are paying more in childcare than they are in rent. You didn't move here to be poor, but you're living like you are. And here's the kicker, wages haven't kept up. The wage illusion. Australia has high salaries, on paper, but those numbers are hollow when you compare them to cost of living. According to a 2024 analysis by the Australian Council of Social Service, real wages adjusted for inflation, have gone backwards. Australians are earning less purchasing power now than they were 5 years ago. A teacher earning $80,000 sounds comfortable, but after rent, after groceries, after the basics, that teacher has less disposable income than someone earning $45,000 in Portugal or Poland. The high salary doesn't matter if the cost of existing is higher. Here's where it gets ugly. Australians work some of the longest hours in the developed world. A Workforce Australia report found that the average full-time worker clocks 44 hours a week, well above the OECD average of 40. You're working more, earning less in real terms, and paying more for everything. That's not a lifestyle. That's a treadmill. The human cost. Meet Sarah, 32, marketing manager, $95,000 a year. She shares a two-bedroom apartment in Parramatta with a stranger she found on Facebook. She hasn't been able to save for a house deposit in 5 years. She eats lunch at a desk because cafe meals are $18. She canceled her gym membership. She doesn't date much. It's too expensive. On paper, she's doing well. In reality, she's stuck. Sarah told me she cries in a car sometimes. Not because of work stress, because she's exhausted from pretending everything's fine. Or David, tradie, $85,000 a year, lives in Brisbane. He works 50 hours a week. His rent went up $80 a week last year. He's 38 and still lives with 2 housemates. He wanted to start a family, but he can't afford to move out, let alone support a child. David's parents bought their first house at 28. He's 38 and can't even afford to live alone. Then there's Priya, nurse, $75,000 a year, Melbourne. She works night shifts at a major hospital. She's got $40,000 in student debt. She spends $520 a week on rent for a studio apartment in Footscray. She's been applying for better-paying positions for 2 years. Nothing. Priya saves lives. She can't save enough money to take a holiday. These aren't people who made bad choices. They are people playing by the rules and losing anyway. And that's just the beginning. The visual trap. Here's the cruelest part. Australia still looks beautiful. The beaches are still there. The skyline still glitters. The brunch cafes are still full on Saturday mornings. Instagram still makes it look like everyone's living the dream. But you're not in those photos. You're working the weekend to cover the electricity bill. The beauty doesn't pay your rent. The lifestyle doesn't reduce your stress. The perfect weather doesn't make your wages stretch further. This is what burnout looks like in a postcard country. You wake up tired. You work hard. You earn decent money. And somehow, you're still broke. Tourism Australia spent $230 million in 2023 promoting the country overseas. The campaign showed koalas, beaches, and smiling people living effortlessly. They don't show the 35-year-old project manager sleeping in his car between shifts because he can't afford bond on a rental. They don't show the couple who've been saving for a house for 8 years and is still $120,000 short of a deposit. They don't show the international student working 30 hours a week illegally just to cover rent and food because their student visa limits them to 24 hours. The marketing is flawless. The reality is brutal. The escalation. It's not just individuals. It's entire generations. Australians aged 25 to 40 are now the first generation in modern history expected to be financially worse off than their parents. Home ownership among millennials has dropped to 45%, down from 60% for Gen X at the same age. The Australian Bureau of Statistics reported that nearly 120,000 people are experiencing homelessness on any given night, and 60% of them are employed. You can have a job and still not afford a roof. Universities are seeing record numbers of students living in cars or couch surfing. Food bank usage has increased by 35% since 2022, and half of those accessing support are working families. Food Bank Australia's 2024 hunger report found that 3.7 million households experienced food insecurity in the past year. That's 1 in 3 Australian households. 1 in 3. People are skipping meals. Parents are going without so their kids can eat. Pensioners are choosing between medication and groceries. This isn't a housing crisis. It's a livability crisis. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. Just not for you. The comparison. Let's put this in perspective. Australia's GDP per capita is among the highest in the world. The country is resource-rich. There's no war, no dictatorship, no collapsing infrastructure. So why does it feel like survival? Compare Australia to countries with similar wealth. Norway, median house price, 400,000 Australian dollars equivalent. Median income, 85,000 Australian dollars equivalent. Childcare, heavily subsidized. University, free. Germany, rent in Berlin, 1,200 Australian dollars per month for a 1-bedroom. Munich, the most expensive city, 1,800 Australian dollars, Australian equivalent in Sydney, 2,800 Australian dollars. Canada, facing similar housing issues, but groceries are 20 to 30% cheaper. Wages in tech and healthcare are comparable, but the cost floor is lower. Even the United States, a country notorious for inequality, offers cheaper housing in most cities outside New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. A software engineer in Austin or Denver lives significantly better than one in Sydney on the same salary. Australia has the wealth. It just doesn't distribute it to the people actually living here. Here's where it gets worse. The hidden tax. Then there's the stress tax. You don't talk about it, but it's there. The constant mental math. Can I afford this? Should I skip that? What if something breaks? The shame of earning good money and still feeling poor. The exhaustion of working more and getting less. The isolation of canceling plans because you can't afford to go out. Australians now rank among the most stressed populations in the OECD. Mental health services are overloaded. Burnout is endemic. Antidepressant prescriptions have hit record highs. A 2023 report from Beyond Blue found that 45% of Australians aged 25 to 44 reported feeling constant financial stress. Not occasional worry. Constant. The Australian Psychological Society found that financial stress is now the leading cause of anxiety and depression among working-age adults, ahead of work pressure, relationships, and health concerns. You move here for a better life. Now you're just surviving, and the system punishes you for struggling. The shame spiral. There's an unspoken rule in Australia. You don't complain. You're supposed to be grateful. Grateful for the sunshine. Grateful for the safety. Grateful for the opportunity. If you're struggling, people assume you're bad with money. Lazy. Entitled. Not working hard enough. So you stay quiet. You smile at work. You post beach photos. You say, yeah, all good when someone asks how you're doing. But inside, you're drowning. You've stopped checking your bank account because it's too depressing. You've stopped planning for the future because there's no point. You've stopped believing things will improve because they haven't. And when someone suggests just budget better or cut out the daily coffee, you want to scream. You already did. You already cut everything. And you're still behind. This is the part nobody talks about. The trap. You can't easily leave. Moving overseas costs money. Breaking a lease costs money. Shipping your life somewhere else costs money. And if you've been here long enough, you've built something, a job, a network, a routine. Leaving means starting over. So you stay. You adapt. You lower your expectations. You stop dreaming about buying a house. You stop planning for the future. You stop believing things will improve. You convince yourself this is normal. But it's not. In 2023, Australia saw net immigration for the first time in decades. More people left than arrived. And most of them were skilled workers, the exact people the country claims to need. They didn't leave because they hated Australia. They left because they couldn't afford to stay. Engineers moving to Germany. Nurses moving to the UK. IT workers moving to Canada. Teachers moving to the Middle East. They are not leaving for adventure. They are leaving for survival. The breaking point. Here's what happens when you stay too long. You stop planning. You stop hoping. You stop trying. You take the overtime not because you want to, but because you have to. You skip the dentist because it's $300 you don't have. You ignore the check engine light because a mechanic costs $800. You stop seeing friends. You stop going out. You stop doing the things that made life worth living. And one day, you realize you're not living in Australia. You're just existing in an expensive place. The Australian Institute of Health and Welfare reported that burnout-related GP visits have increased by 60% since 2020. Emergency room visits for anxiety and stress-related symptoms are up 40%. People aren't coping. They are breaking. And the country doesn't seem to care. The political indifference. Politicians talk about cost of living relief. They announce $300 energy rebates, $75 tax offsets, temporary fuel excise cuts. It's a joke. You're $2,000 short every month, and they're offering you $300 once a year. Meanwhile, property investors get tax breaks worth tens of thousands. Corporations get subsidies. The wealthiest Australians pay lower effective tax rates than middle-income workers. The system is rigged, and everyone knows it. But nothing changes, because the people making the rules aren't living your reality. They own multiple properties. They have investment portfolios. They don't worry about rent. They don't feel the crisis. So they don't fix it. The final realization. You came here for a better life. You were told Australia was the lucky country. Safe. Prosperous. Fair. And maybe it was. Once. But now it's a country where you can work full-time, earn good money, and still not afford a decent life. It's a country that looks beautiful in photos but feels suffocating to live in. It's a country that imports skilled workers, bones them out, and wonders why they leave. You deserve better than this. You deserve to work full-time and afford rent without housemates. You deserve to save for the future. You deserve to live, not just survive. But Australia isn't offering that anymore. Not to you. Not to most people. The question. So here's what nobody wants to ask. If you're working full-time, earning decent money, and still can't afford a stable life, what's the point of being here? Is the beach worth the burnout? Is the safety worth the financial stress? Is the beauty worth the exhaustion? And if you're already planning your exit, where are you going? You tell me.